I am a manic patient, as is well known. The three most typical characteristics of manic patients are feeling exceptionally good about oneself, abundant energy, prone to impulsive destruction and harming others. Now, I, a manic patient, have transmigrated into a novel about learning obedience tropes and female abuse. I am a manic patient, but I'm different from other manic patients. I was born with immense strength. Other manic patients can't kill someone with one punch. But I can truly kill a person with a single blow. These days, there are idiots everywhere outside. As a law-abiding good citizen, in order not to cause a negative impact on society, there was no other way. I voluntarily locked myself up in a mental hospital. My transmigration into the book happened suddenly. The moment I opened my eyes, I was at the wedding venue. I was wearing a pure white wedding dress. Standing face to face with the male lead, the hall was filled with guests. And just as the MC finished saying, "The groom may now kiss the bride," a figure suddenly rushed up from the crowd. A fragile, delicate girl abruptly knelt on the floor. She frantically kowtowed to me as if she had gone mad. "Mingyu, I've already done as you said and let all those thugs have their way with me. Please, I'm begging you, let me go." "Okay, brother, please tell Mingyu to let me go, please." After saying this, she lifted her tear-streaked face and looked desperately toward the person beside me. Pitiful and delicate, she evoked compassion in all who saw her. The audience erupted in an uproar. On stage, the handsome and noble man was overcome with heartache, then erupted in fury, gently scooping the girl from the floor into his arms. His eyes burned crimson as he turned and cast an icy, bone-chilling glare at me. "The wedding is cancelled." After tenderly placing a deep kiss on the girl's forehead, the groom walked away from the wedding venue without looking back. Before leaving, he glanced at his assistant and coldly said, "Send her to Moonlight to atone for Luo Luo's sins." The groom abandoned the bride and ran off recklessly while holding someone else. After witnessing what had just happened, the wedding guests couldn't help but whisper among themselves. From time to time, they cast contemptuous glances in my direction. I stood alone on the scene. I don't have time to care about what others are discussing. I'm seriously contemplating my current situation. Wedding, Mingyu, brother, Luo Luo, such a familiar scene, no doubt about it. This must be that tragic romance web novel I stumbled upon last night where the female lead gets mistreated before the male lead chases after her. The one who just left is the male lead of this story, Xia Huijin, the outlaw, the source of all the female lead's suffering. And the girl who just rushed on stage to slander the female lead is his half-sister, Xia Yulua, with whom he tasted the forbidden fruit. Anger burned in my chest. I closed my eyes, struggling to contain my emotions. In the original story, to conceal their illicit affair, Xia Huijin chose to marry Mingyu, the female lead who had long harbored feelings for him. Xia Yulua, convinced that the female lead had stolen her brother away, vowed to ruin the wedding and take revenge on Mingyu. She succeeded. Mingyu was sent into Moonlight by Xia Huijin and was forced to entertain clients for 2 whole months. During this period, Mingyu was psychologically manipulated and humiliated, and physically beaten and coerced, enduring what could be described as inhuman torment. For reasons unknown, the author even smugly emphasized that the female lead's legs were played with until they were broken. 2 months later, she met the male lead. Mingyu's first reaction was to confess, apologize, and beg for mercy, swearing that she had learned her lesson. Then, with trembling hands, she began to undress with practiced ease. Manic disorder already made her prone to emotional instability. Just reading the beginning made me so furious I could have punched through the hospital wall. Not wanting to spend money on this kind of writing, I didn't continue reading and instead clicked into the comments section. Sure enough, everyone who finished it was cursing it. After reading the plot summary in the comments, my hands were trembling with anger, and I followed my heart by writing a scathing review too. The brutal experience of an Indian female doctor, humiliated, beaten, and raped until her legs were broken, along with the profound sorrow of the entire female community, is rendered as light as a feather under the author's pen. I hope the writer of this story isn't trying to profit from others' suffering, otherwise I curse you to vomit it back 1,000-fold. The moment after clicking send, I transmigrated into the female lead of this misogynistic novel, who was innocently harmed. At this thought, I trembled with excitement. No one noticed that the Mingyu in this book had already been replaced by someone else. I lifted my head and looked toward the end of the red carpet. Xia Huijin's assistant walked over and blocked my line of sight, if I remember correctly. He was also one of the admirers of the female supporting character, Xia Yulua. Most of the people who forced Mingyu were found by him. Miss Mingyu, the assistant's tone carried a hint of mockery, his eyes filled with malice. After you, staring straight at him, I slowly revealed a smile. What's the rush? Wait in line properly. I'll deal with you one by one. The assistant practically couldn't wait to send me off to moonlight. After pushing me into a room, he stood at the doorway, glaring at me with venomous eyes. Slut, whore. He slammed the door shut with great force, leaving only his vicious voice echoing in the room. A woman like you deserves to be locked up in here, slept with by thousands and ridden by tens of thousands. I acted as if I hadn't heard a thing. Standing in the exquisitely decorated room, I carefully surveyed my surroundings. Moonlight was Xia Huijin's establishment. In the original story, the female lead was sent here to be tamed. Looking at the various tools laid out on the table, I reached out and touched the black leather belt. A faint, desperate protest from the original female lead echoed in my ears. I stood frozen in place, my heart filled with fear and confusion. Just as I was trembling with fear, the door suddenly swung open and 4 men walked in. They grabbed me by the hair, hurling vulgar insults while slapping my face repeatedly. I screamed in despair, but my mouth and nose were covered. A man picked up the belt on the table and walked toward me with a menacing expression. When I woke up again, it was already dark outside. My body felt as if it had been torn apart, and a nauseating smell reached my nose. Excruciating pain flooded my mind, and every inch of my skin was a horrifying sight. I let out a desperate roar, but my damaged throat couldn't produce any sound. A dull ache throbbed from deep within my heart. The flames of anger leaped from my chest once more. I closed my eyes. Almost every character in this book was using violence against Mingyu, and violence, as it happened, was an ability I was born with. Click, the sound of the door lock snapped me out of my thoughts. The moment I looked up, the door swung open. 4 men with fierce, menacing expressions walked in. Seeing me in the pure white wedding dress in the room, they simultaneously revealed a cruel smile. A hand reached over and locked the door from the outside. The man in the lead gave a meaningful glance. The group scattered, some picking up cameras, others selecting props, working in seamless coordination. Their movements were practiced and skilled. It was clear this wasn't their first time doing something like this. After stripping off their clothes, those men approached me with leering grins. You bitch, just wait till I fuck you to death. I kept my head lowered, standing motionless in place. It wasn't until a foul-smelling hand reached near my ear that I finally lifted my head. I met the person's gaze expressionlessly. Slap, a crisp sound of a slap suddenly echoed through the room, amidst the rising and falling screams and the sounds of bodies hitting the ground. I began a revenge befitting a tragic heroine. In a daze, I once again heard Mingyu's cries. They grabbed my hair, I grabbed their hair. Slaps kept landing on my face. I summoned all my strength, and my palms rained down on their faces like a storm. I screamed, begging them to let me go. But they only hit me harder. The men shrieked, pleading for me to spare them, but I turned a deaf ear, switching from slaps to fists, putting even more force behind my blows. The crack of the belt split open on my flesh, the pain so intense I lost my voice, my mouth agape in a silent scream. I picked up the belt from the table, wrapped it tightly around my hand, and with every lash, I put all my strength into it. Those bastards were in so much pain they could no longer make a sound, only writhing on the ground. Later, they stopped hitting me, they forced me, and I was powerless to resist. I could only lie there numbly, my eyes wide open, staring fixedly at the ceiling, watching the reflection in the mirror of my own pitiful, disheveled self. I stopped what I was doing and looked over the group of naked bodies on the floor, staring directly at their filth. I slowly began to smile, raising the belt in my hand once again. The floor was covered with unconscious people. When it was all over, I looked up indifferently at the mirror on the ceiling. Reflected in the mirror was a face, both laughing and crying, already gone mad. The wedding dress in the original text, stained with the bride's blood, was once again covered in bloodstains, but this time, it was no longer a canvas recording the bride's lament. Instead, it is a medal for judging the sin of rape. Holding the belt, I kicked open the locked door. The assistant leaning against the wall smoking looked at me covered in blood, a malicious and gleeful smile spreading across his face. What a born whore, even 4 men couldn't finish you off. As soon as he finished speaking, he sensed something was wrong. Glancing at the rickety door behind me, his eyebrow twitched, and he turned to flee. I let out a sinister laugh, quickly reaching out. I grabbed his hair and slammed him hard onto the ground. I hadn't forgotten, among those who had sexually assaulted Mingyu, there was also him. The tough leather belt fell mercilessly on his body. Even after I stopped, the man continued to scream pitifully, like a drowned dog. A sudden chill struck my cheek. I reached out my fingertip and gently wiped away that tear. This is only the beginning. Everyone who has hurt you will pay the price. I swear to you, Mingyu. After burning that wedding dress, I stayed at Moonlight. The author whitewashed Xia Huijin in the text, saying he had no idea what Mingyu went through at Moonlight. He just wanted to teach her a lesson. He just wanted her to learn to behave. I let out a cold laugh. The author portrays the male lead as decisive in killing and all-powerful, yet also claims he was completely deceived by his subordinates. Moonlight Pavilion was an industry built from scratch by Xia Huijin, a location frequently mentioned in the original text. Do you think he was completely unaware of the consequences of sending Mingyu in? How ridiculous. The construction of dimensions often relies on a foundation in reality. When you find one cockroach in a room, it usually means they have already infested every corner of the house. Beneath the pen of a misogynistic author, only the flowers of sin can bloom. Mingyu was by no means the first victim of Yusei. Here lies hidden the 18 layers of hell. Inside, it is filled with women. 2 months later. Following the plot, I, who had vanished into the moonlight, returned to the Ming family. In the original text, after escaping the moonlight, Mingyu, battered and bruised, did not go to Xia Huijin but chose to return to her own home. She still held a glimmer of hope for her family. I know that neither my father nor my brother likes me. My brother is fond of Xia Yulua, and my father admires Xia Yulua's deceased mother. But I thought, after all, I am my father's daughter and my brother's sister. Perhaps they still hold a little pity for me, but I was wrong. When I got home, I was greeted by my father's scolding and my brother's slap. They ordered me to kneel in the yard for 4 hours, to apologize to Xia Huijin, and even more so, to atone for Xia Yulua. Even though it never actually happened, everyone firmly believed it was all my fault, because I am guilty, because I was born with sin. No, that's not true, Mingyu. You have never harmed anyone. The guilty ones are those who hurt you. The author, in collusion with the characters in the book, has murdered you time and time again. The guilty ones are them. Standing for a long time in front of the Ming family's gate, after calming my emotions, I resolutely pushed open the door before me. You have the nerve to come back. As soon as I stepped into the living room, a vase came flying straight at my face. I dodged it nimbly. A dull shattering sound echoed behind me. The culprit was standing not far away, Ming Zhang's eyes wide with fury, glaring at me with a terrifying, almost cannibalistic hatred. I glanced at the shattered vase fragments behind me, then calmly averted my gaze. In the original story, Mingyu had been struck by this very vase, wielded by her own brother, leaving her head bloodied and battered. Her father, meanwhile, sat in a wheelchair nearby, watching coldly from the sidelines. 2 months ago, they had been the same. One was filled with shock and fury, the other's eyes were icy and detached. They had allowed Mingyu to be taken from the wedding without making the slightest move to stop it. They clearly knew what Mingyu had experienced under the moonlight, yet they remained indifferent to it. They even believed she deserved it. Born evil, Ming Zhang looked at me with utter disgust. As if he had seen something filthy, bullying classmates during school, mistreating friends, relying on family power to do every evil deed imaginable. And now grown up, you're shameless and utterly uncultured. Who gave you the nerve? How dare you harm Luoluo? So that last sentence was the real point, wasn't it? I tilted my head and gave a scornful laugh. Ming Zhang's anger flared instantly. He raised his hand, intending to slap me. The slap came with a whooshing sound. I raised my hand and easily intercepted it, then punched him in the face. You didn't use any force, yet you successfully escalated Ming Zhang's rage to another level. Mingyu, his face was full of disbelief. You bitch, how dare you fight back? My answer was another crisp slap. Ming Shiyan, who had been pretending not to see, suddenly darkened his expression and scolded sharply. How dare you, you ungrateful little beast. Ming Zhang, discipline your sister properly. Ming Zhang nodded and immediately reached out to grab me, but I turned and dodged. Brother, I grinned at him cheekily. Your discipline doesn't seem very effective, does it? Ming Zhang felt instinctively insulted, and in his anger, a flash of ruthlessness crossed his eyes. His movements to grab me became even more aggressive. I continued to dodge nimbly. My brother always says I'm not as good as Xia Yulua. He says I'm not even worthy of one of her toes and that I'm always jealous of her. In truth, it's not that I'm jealous of Xia Yulua, rather, he's jealous of Xia Huijin. Xia Huijin is the favored son of heaven, the darling of God, and he is merely the eldest son of the Ming family, no different from the eldest son of the Wang family, the eldest son of the Li family, or countless other eldest sons. My brother was very angry when I married Xia Huijin. He felt that I had betrayed him, even though the decision to marry was made by him and my father together, as punishment for betraying him. He slapped me so hard that I became half-deaf, and my left ear could no longer hear. Ming Zhang was obsessed with catching me. I stopped, looking at him drenched in sweat. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Brother, you look so ridiculous, just like a clown in the circus. No wonder Xia Yulua doesn't like you. If it were me, I'd choose Xia Huijin too. Ming Zhang was completely enraged. Bitch, bitch. He looked frantic, charging towards me recklessly. I stood motionless. Just as his hand was about to touch me, I gently, ever so gently, turned in place and once again brushed past him. A dull thud echoed. A few moments later, a piercing, agonized roar suddenly erupted from behind. I turned around and saw Ming Zhang clutching his left eye, collapsing onto the floor in agony. Blood continuously seeped out from between his fingers. My brother said it's all my fault for being too disobedient, which is why he couldn't hold back and accidentally damaged my ear. It's all because Ming Zhang wanted to teach me a lesson so badly that I couldn't help but dodge. It was his own carelessness that caused his eyeball to be burst by the sharp corner of the cabinet. Ah Zhang, Ming Shiyan was horrified and desperately pushed his wheelchair to Ming Zhang's side. Hearing the noise, the nanny, Auntie Song, hurried out. She glanced at me and suddenly froze. What are you standing there for? Ming Shiyan, furious and anxious, turned and shouted at Auntie Song. Hurry up and call an ambulance. Aunt Song seemed not to have heard anything, just staring at me fixedly, gazing in my direction. Her eyes gradually grew moist. When I was 7 years old, my mother fell seriously ill. Father refused to take her to the hospital and wouldn't let her go by herself either, so mother could only wait to die at home. Before she died, mother held me in her arms, repeatedly crying out that she didn't want to die. She was afraid that after her death, her daughter would face a fate worse than death. With tears streaming down my face, I ran downstairs and knelt before my father and brother, who were leisurely sipping tea, begging them over and over to call an ambulance. No one paid any attention to me. They looked at me calmly, unmoved by the dying wife and mother. In desperation, I had no choice but to seek help from Auntie Song. Auntie Song hurried over to the telephone. Just as I was about to pick up the receiver, my father looked over, his tone carrying a hidden warning. This is the Ming family's private matter. As a servant, you shouldn't interfere too much. Ming Zhang was still writhing in agony on the floor. The floor was stained with drops of blood. Ming Shiyan's heart ached terribly. Just as he was about to burst out cursing, Aunt Song finally moved. Sir, she lifted her head and looked at Ming Shiyan with indifference. Slowly, she began to speak. This is your Ming family's affair. As a mere servant, it's not my place to interfere too much. With that, Aunt Song turned and went back to the kitchen without hesitation. Ming Shiyan was about to lose his temper when he turned his head and realized I had somehow appeared behind him without him noticing. I called out softly, Dad. Ming Shiyan froze for a moment. Seizing the moment of his distraction, I grabbed the wheelchair handles and yanked them upward with all my strength. The person in the wheelchair tumbled awkwardly to the ground. I examined him carefully, a malicious smile. Dad, no wonder Xia Yulua's mother didn't choose you back then. Who would want to marry a paralyzed man who can't even control his own bladder and bowels? The wound he least wanted to mention was torn open so brutally, and Ming Shiyan completely broke down. Almost immediately, his face flushed red, and veins bulged on his forehead and neck. He cursed and insulted me without restraint. Yet my face remained indifferent, unmoved. 4 hours later, The living room was filled with the foul stench of excrement. Ming Shiyan was neurotically crouched on the floor, trembling uncontrollably, while Ming Zhang had long since passed out from the pain. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the sunset as I made a phone call. Hello, I am reporting under my real name that the Ming Corporation is involved in illegal fundraising. The Ming father and son are engaged in money laundering, tax evasion, and embezzlement of public funds, with an enormous amount of money involved. As soon as I finished speaking, Ming Shiyan looked up at me in disbelief. I ignored him and continued, all the evidence is on Ming Zhang's computer, and there are other things in there too. Yes, that's right, I will fully cooperate. You're asking for my name. The person collapsed on the ground, suddenly began screaming frantically. I stared at the reflection in the floor-to-ceiling window, a silent smile curling at the corner of my lips. Then whispered softly, Ming Yu, my name is Ming Yu, and I love this name. My mother told me it means, a flaw cannot obscure the splendor of the jade. On a street 300 meters away from moonlight, inside a hidden cafe, I sat face to face with a girl who had short hair. Her name is Lin Songyue, and she is a police officer. The Ming father and son have been apprehended, with multiple crimes combined for sentencing. One received 20 years, the other 25 years, along with fines and confiscation of property, due to delayed medical treatment. Ming Zhang's left eye has been permanently damaged. Picking up the coffee in front of her, Lin Songyue frowned. But Ming Shiyan seems to have developed some mental issues. Ever since he was imprisoned, he keeps shouting about seeing ghosts. I gave a faint, wry smile. He's got a guilty conscience. That makes sense. All right, let's not talk about this anymore. Taking a sip of coffee, Lin Songyue waved her hand and said, I have two pieces of bad news for you. First, the wedding video was somehow leaked online, and public opinion is still heating up. You're being cyberbullied. Second, ever since you caused that scene at Moonlight and suddenly disappeared, Xia Huijin has been sending people to look for you. But don't lose hope. She gave me a reassuring look and continued, I still have two pieces of good news to tell you. First, the cyber police noticed that a girl has been speaking up for you all along. Second, with our protection, you don't need to worry about safety issues. My expression remained unchanged, but my eyes softened. Thank you, it's only right. Lin Songyue rubbed the rim of the cup and suddenly sighed. Actually, we've had our eyes on Xia Huijin for a long time, but strangely, for some reason, the clues always break off at critical moments. It's as if there's an invisible hand at work behind the scenes. These past few days, our investigation has hit another dead end. Lin Songyue was right. I gaze up at the azure sky. In this world, there is indeed an invisible hand. It belongs to the author who wrote this story. The male lead can dominate everything, all thanks to the golden finger bestowed by the author. Unfortunately, because the author's intentions were not upright and they had little knowledge of the law, as a result, even when crafting such a male protagonist in a story that abuses women, despite using an abundance of flattering words, they still couldn't conceal the fact that beneath the glamorous exterior was a shell already filled with foul, putrid pus. But then again, the author being legally ignorant doesn't mean the world they created lacks rules. The construction of dimensions in modern romance is based on reality. The social structure of the virtual dimension is largely similar to that of the real world, and its societal operations inevitably bear traces of the real world. Therefore, in this world, there will also be morality and law. There will also be light and justice. For the 2 months I vanished into thin air. I didn't go anywhere. I was hiding in the moonlight all along. That's where I met Lin Songyue, the girl who helped Ming Yu in the original story, but was hastily brushed aside by the author. She was actually an undercover agent planted by the police. With her help, I avoided the surveillance points and successfully entered the labyrinth of power and desire hidden beneath the Moonlight Foundation. I used the cameras of those who came before to record everything I saw. After escaping Moonlight, I handed over all the evidence I had collected to Lin Songyue. At the time, she asked me, what kind of place is that? Really? I remained silent for a long time. There, it is a man's paradise. There, it is the Avicii hell for women. Having obtained the crucial evidence, Lin Songyue's superior did not hesitate to apply for a search warrant. However, just as Lin Songyue had said, after turning Moonlight upside down with a thorough search, the police rescue operation once again hit a dead end. The entrance to the underground labyrinth had vanished. the elevator room hidden in the attic had turned into a solid wall. It's really strange, Lin Songyue couldn't figure it out no matter how hard she thought. After being undercover at Moonlight for so long, I remember clearly, there was supposed to be a door leading into the attic there, but it's gone, it's just gone. It was that hand, I understand, because of the author's favoritism. No matter how outrageous the events that happened to the male lead, there's no need to be surprised. The plot has been completely disrupted because of my arrival. In the original story, by this time, Mingyu had already been sent to the Xia siblings to suffer beatings and humiliation. But now, I have become Mingyu. The plot is no longer about the tug-of-war between the male and female leads, but a game between me and the author. The author forcibly elevated Xia Huijin to a high position. I want him to fall hard. Clenching my fists, Mingyu's confession echoed in my ears once more. On the 14th day after being sent to the Xia family to atone, it was Xia Yulua's birthday. Xia Huijin had prepared a grand birthday banquet for her. On that night woven with power and wealth, Xia Yulua was the brightest pearl in the crowd. I stood below the stage like a walking corpse, numb and lifeless, quietly watching her, as Xia Huijin's most beloved younger sister. The little princess cherished in the palm of his hand. Her life is a magnificent gown. At this point in the original text, the main plot has already passed its halfway mark. Xia Yulua's birthday banquet serves as the turning point in the relationship between the male and female leads. That night, a girl who had been bullied by Xia Yulua during middle school appeared. She released a video recording. The video clearly captured Xia Yulua's face and voice, as well as her despicable act of inciting others to coerce the girl. After living together for over 20 years, Xia Huijin felt as if he was only just getting to know his sister for the first time. Heartbroken and furious, he swiftly sent Xia Yulua abroad, and then, he began his long and arduous journey to win back his wife, and the girl who had been bullied quietly disappeared, never to be mentioned again. Where would Xia Huijin throw her? The answer was self-evident. This world was simply absurd to the point of being laughable. The female antagonist commits crimes, and the author punishes her by making her lose the male lead's love. The female protagonist suffers greatly, and the author compensates her by granting her the male lead's love, as if the male lead's love is the greatest existence in the world, capable of erasing sins, soothing pain, and even replacing law and morality to cover up all injustices. I lifted my head and stared fixedly at the person across from me, the girl who always stood up for me. Songyue, find her. Time flies like a fleeting white horse. In the blink of an eye, it was Xia Yulua's birthday. Night, heavy rain. In the elevator ascending to the top floor of the skyscraper, I gazed through the transparent glass at the giant screen across the way. On the screen, Xia Yulua, dressed in an expensive gown, wore an innocent, sweet smile on her exquisitely made-up face, elegantly cutting the custom-made cake before her. Countless camera flashes converged on her. The whole world is witnessing her happiness. I withdrew my gaze, opening my hand. The silver-white USB drive lay quietly in my palm. A pale hand reached over. I stepped aside. You can wait for us to come back, Chiyu. That pale hand paused for a moment, then resolutely took the USB drive from my hand. No, I'm going. The girl beside him lifted an equally pale face, with a fierce scar on her cheek. Chiyu said with determination, I still have something to say to Xia Yulua. Ding, the floor number stopped at 117, and the elevator doors opened. Chiyu stepped out of the elevator and headed to the right without looking back. I followed closely behind, resolutely walking in the opposite direction. I stopped in front of the banquet hall doors, where the security guard standing by the entrance discreetly nodded at me. I looked straight ahead, grasping the gilded handle. I pushed with all my might. The lively atmosphere froze for an instant. I strode into the hall with my head held high, and the cameras, sensing something unusual, eagerly turned their lenses toward me. This banquet has brought me nothing but humiliation. I don't understand why those people harbor such intense malice toward me. Later I came to realize that among those who bullied me under the moonlight, they were there too. All those politicians and celebrities appearing at the banquet were merely interlocking rings of power and desire. Someone looked at me mockingly. TSK, isn't this Miss Ming? Slap. I slapped him across the face. The man fell to the ground, clutching his face and howling like a wounded animal. Everyone was startled, and another person jumped out, angrily shouting, how dare you hit someone, smack. Another crisp slap rang out. Are you insane? Security, where is security? Slap, Mingyu, slap, what are you doing? Stay away from me, slap, 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 slaps echoed one after another. Without a word, I was single-mindedly determined to give a slap to everyone who had ever bullied Mingyu. Everything happened too fast. By the time Xia Huijing realized what was going on, the ground was already littered with people groaning in disarray. Mingyu. His face darkened as he called out to me in a warning tone, a flicker of displeasure flashing in his eyes. I acted as if I hadn't heard, pushing my hand to the side. The massive champagne tower instantly collapsed, shattering into pieces with a loud crash, leaving wine and glass shards scattered everywhere. With the birthday party ruined, Xia Yulua shot me a venomous glare, yet on her face, she wore an expression on the verge of tears. She looked helplessly at Xia Huijin beside her and hid in his arms. Brother, Luo is scared. I walked over to the tea break area and kicked over the long table. Enough. Xia Huijin kissed the forehead of the person in his arms with heartache, his aloof and noble face revealing overwhelming fury. He couldn't take it anymore and walked over, grabbing my shoulders forcefully. Mingyu, why can't you ever learn to behave? At the same time, Lin Songyue's voice came through the earpiece. Moonlight has been surrounded by our people. You can begin, Mingyu. I nodded, shaking off Xia Huijin's hand. I turned around and slapped him. Xia Huijin fell to the ground in pain, and as he opened his mouth, several blood-stained teeth fell out. When a woman slaps you, first your eardrum ruptures, and you lose all sound from the world. Then you realize your cheek is burning with pain, half of your face is swollen and red, your eye is swollen into a slit, and your whole body falls uncontrollably to the ground. You look up desperately, trying to see her expression, imagining her anger and breakdown, yet all I could see was her extremely calm expression, followed immediately by the next slap. I lifted my chin, the seemingly invincible male lead in the author's writing. I could render him immobile with just one slap. At this point, I finally spoke my first words since entering the hall. Xia Huijin. I tilted my head, looking down condescendingly at the disheveled figure on the ground, revealing a malicious smile. I'm here to teach you a lesson, brother. Watching Xia Huijin fall, Xia Yulua let out a sharp scream, but before she could react, the lights in the banquet hall began to flicker, and within seconds, everything was plunged into darkness. Deprived of light, the crowd grew restless. Suddenly, the massive screen behind Xia Yulua lit up. A video began to play. The first thing that appeared was Xia Yulua's face and voice. In the footage, her face still looked youthful, but her tone already carried a filthy malice that didn't match her age. You bitch, who allowed you to use the same name as me? A crisp slap and a helpless sob rang out simultaneously as Xia Yulua continued to vent her venomous rage. Flirting with men at school every day, using your good grades to curry favor with teachers. Do you think the whole world should revolve around you? You and Mingyu, you two bitches, I'll deal with you one by one, neither of you will get away. As she spoke, she suddenly pulled out a dagger. You're so beautiful, it's a shame not to be a whore. Today, I'll help you out. The girl's screams echoed as a group of despicable men leered and reached out their hands. The camera maliciously turned toward the victim. The next second, the screen was suddenly covered with thick mosaic censorship. The surroundings fell silent for a moment. Chi-Yu, hidden in the shadows, looked at me in disbelief. I gazed back at her gently. Yes, I'm so sick of the cameras always pointing directly at the victims without any cover. So when I got Chi-Yu's video, the first thing I did was to add a thick mosaic over her, and after the image quality was restored, the faces of the perpetrators became extremely clear. That originally blurry figure sitting in the corner also clearly appeared before everyone's eyes. It was Xia Huijin. The male lead in the author's writing, who knew nothing about this, was at the scene back then and was also one of the perpetrators. The audience erupted in an uproar. The sound of camera shutters clicked even more frantically. The lights came back on. Xia Yulua, her face deathly pale, collapsed to the floor, trembling as she stared at Chi-Yu, who had appeared on the stage at some unknown moment. Chi-Yu walked toward her step by step. Xia Yulua, terrified, scrambled backward until her back hit the screen. There was nowhere left to hide. Chi-Yu stood before her with an expressionless face. Suddenly, he let out a scornful laugh. Do you think I would hit you, Do you think I would seek revenge on you the same way you tormented me? No, I won't. I refuse to become someone like you. Looking down at the pitiful figure below, Chiyu raised her stubborn face. Do you know what I want to tell you? Xia Yulua, I want to tell you. I haven't been defeated by you. All these years, I've been living well. I didn't wallow in sorrow and fear. Instead, I've grown stronger. I cherish life. I bask in the sunlight. I bravely redeemed myself, and I am proud of who I've become. Chiyu stood on the stage with her back straight, like a towering tree that has weathered violent storms, yet still stands tall and firmly rooted in the earth. My nose tingled with waves of sourness, and my eyes brimmed with warmth. Chiyu, who can never be defeated. You are truly remarkable, Mingyu. Lin Songyue's voice came through the earpiece once again, filled with urgency at this moment. What do? We still can't find that door. My expression turned stern. Even at this point, is the author still determined to shield the male lead? Fury surged from the depths of my heart. I reached out both hands, grabbed Xia Huijin by the collar, and struck without mercy. One punch after another. You love men. Is that it? The more you love him, the harder I'll beat him, until he's dead. Go ahead and protect him. Just see if I dare to kill him. Amidst Xia Huijin's miserable screams, beside her, Lin Songyue's voice came through, choked with tears of joy. That door has appeared. Mingyu, we're going in. Oh my god, this place. Mingyu, we found them. We finally found them. By the end, her voice was already choked with sobs. Only then did I stop what I was doing. I cast a cold glance at the man on the ground, our noble male lead. His face already swollen like a pig's head. He didn't even have the strength to scream. The rescue operation was successful, with both witnesses and evidence secured. The police, who had been lying in wait all around, immediately took action and decisively apprehended the criminals. The scene was bustling with activity. I looked at Chiyu from across the crowd. She looked in my direction and gave a warm smile. Thank you, Mingyu. Her gaze fell upon me. Thank you. Long-term bullying of classmates. Intentional harm, illegal detention, inciting others to rape minors, and forcing multiple classmates into prostitution. The circumstances were extremely severe, and with multiple charges combined, Xia Yulua was sentenced to 30 years. Upon hearing the news, she completely broke down and went insane. Lin Songyue said she kept repeating every day that she clearly wouldn't go to prison. At most her brother would send her abroad. It seems she had long known that she was also favored by the author. I curled the corner of my mouth. If even the supporting female character was like this, shouldn't the male lead have noticed it earlier than anyone else? On the day Xia Huijin's trial began, I went to the courtroom. The organization forced multiple women into prostitution, distributed obscene videos under extremely egregious circumstances, raped minors, evaded corporate taxes, intentionally inflicted harm, and illegally possessed firearms, with multiple crimes combined. The judge immediately sentenced him to death and confiscated all his property. Xia Huijin, his face swollen like a pig's head, screamed with venomous resentment in the courtroom. Impossible. How dare you treat me like this? I am the male lead. This whole world revolves around me. Why are you treating me like this? The roar echoed for a long time around. A few moments later, a woman stood up from the jury seats. Her face was expressionless, her eyes cold. As she fearlessly scrutinized Xia Huijin, then, the woman beside her also stood up, starting with her. One woman after another rose from their seats. They joined hands in unison, silently gazing at Xia Huijin in the defendant's dock. Just over 2 months ago, they had also protected me in the same unspoken agreement. They hid me in the room, shared their food with me, and covered my tracks. Without their help, I wouldn't have been able to hide safely for 2 months under the moonlight. Nor would I have been able to obtain those pieces of evidence. They, all those seated in the public gallery were victims of the moonlight case. At this very moment, the silent judges' voices were deafening. Xia Huijin stared at us with terrified eyes, his teeth chattering, his throat seized by fear. Death was closing in on him, despair wrapping around him. I stood in the last row of the jury and also reached out my hand. A warm hand tightly grasped mine. I turned my head and saw Mingyu standing right beside me. Her eyes were slightly moist as she gave me a gentle smile and called out my name. Thank you, Jiang Nian. The world rapidly twisted and distorted, and soon, Mingyu and I landed in a familiar space. This is the place where we first met. Yes, from the very beginning, Mingyu has been fighting by my side, at the end of the wedding red carpet, in the mirror under the moonlight, by the floor-to-ceiling window of the Ming family. At Xiaolua's birthday banquet, Mingyu has never left. From the moment I came into this world, she has always been by my side in the form of a soul. That's why I've never read this story, yet I know the plot like the back of my hand. I even know many details that even the author never mentioned. The day Mingyu chose me, it was also in this space that she told me about her painful experiences. I wanted to struggle. I wanted to resist, but the plot held me captive. I could only watch helplessly as I walked toward my predetermined fate, losing myself, being humiliated and objectified, enduring unbearable suffering both physically and mentally. All of it, in the end, was just to earn the love of some inexplicable man. Mingyu's face was streaked with tears, her eyes filled with a despair and pain so heavy it felt like 1,000 pounds pressing down on her, making it hard to breathe, almost suffocating, but soon, she stopped crying. A strange smile spread across her face as Mingyu said with an expression of pure happiness, "So I fought with all my might and killed myself. I will never let my life be subjected to the will of another." She looked at me, her eyes blazing with intense light. "Freedom has flowed in my blood since birth. Even the author who created me has no right to trample on my dignity and personhood. I refuse to accept this meaningless life she has written for me, filled with malice and suffering." I stared at her in a daze, feeling a powerful resonance suddenly stir deep within my heart. "Yes, I refuse. We do not accept, whether in books or in reality, we do not accept having our lives dictated by others, nor will we surrender the world to those we despise. We have done it." At this moment, Mingyu quietly met my gaze. "Jiang Nian," she softly called my name once more, a trace of gratitude appearing in her eyes. "Thank you for changing our ending. No, I should be the one thanking you." I took a deep breath. In front of her, I could finally lay bare all my weaknesses without reservation. "You know what, Mingyu, I'm actually a coward. I'm in pain. Every day of my life is agony. I'm tormented by the fact that women have repeated themselves 10,000 times, yet the world still refuses to hear our voices." I read de Beauvoir, I read Sylvia, I read Judith, I memorized Olympe de Gouges' Declaration of the Rights of Woman until it was ingrained in me. But the more I learn, the more I suffer. Every time I think of the woman who was chained for 18 years, the woman who was beaten by her husband until she had to wear a colostomy bag for life, the woman whose nose was bitten off by her boyfriend. Every time the countless women who have not received justice appear in my mind, I always think, how wonderful it would have been if I had been by their side. I have no doubt that I could knock down the ones who hurt them with a single punch, but it's already too late. The pain they suffered has long become an unchangeable fact. I don't understand. Why can't I change anything when I clearly have the power? Later, I finally realized that women ended up in this situation not because we were defeated by violence, but because we lost our power. I feel so small and powerless. My throat tightened with emotion, looking at Mingyu. I couldn't hold back my sobs as I said, "I'm a coward, Mingyu. No one told me how to change any of this, so I became an escapist, using the excuse of manic depression to lock myself away in a mental hospital, living each day in a daze. But unfortunately, the pain hasn't diminished, because I've never been able to accept it. Perhaps it was my stubborn obsession that drew Mingyu to me. She found me and asked me to step into the book to help her. To rewrite the endings for those innocent women." I agreed without hesitation. Even if I had to do it 10,000 times over, I would still make the same choice. I have always believed that the power given to me by the heavens is meant for me to stand by the side of women who need me. Mingyu looked at me tenderly and opened her arms toward me. After exchanging a smile, we embraced each other tightly, as if holding onto a sun that tirelessly burns itself out. In this moment, woman and woman met. I felt her despair as my own, she bore my pain as hers, our hearts connected, and we understood each other completely. I changed Mingyu's fate, and she guided mine as well. We already know the path we must take in the future. We must return to our respective worlds. We must rise to great heights, to contend, to seize, to reclaim the power that rightfully belongs to women. We want women's voices to be deafening. We want the world to never dare cover its ears again. From now on, I will no longer wait in vain for a great opinion leader. because everyone can be a spark that starts a prairie fire, everyone can be a feminist, we never compromise, we never stay silent, we fight for freedom and dignity, in every dimension, until death do us part. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. A family of 3 only ordered 2 bowls of noodles. The braised beef noodles went to the father, while the tomato and egg noodles were shared between the mother and daughter. The mother complained to her daughter, "Ever since I had you, I've even lost the right to eat spicy food." The daughter timidly added a spoonful of chili oil to her bowl. "Mom, I'm not hungry, you can have it." The mother slapped her viciously. "Are you trying to piss me off? Do you know how disgusting it is to put chili oil in tomato and egg noodles?" The mother then turned the tables and posted online with the title, "So it turns out that once you have a child, mothers are no longer allowed to eat spicy food." Netizens unanimously praised the mother for her great sacrifice and criticized the child for being inconsiderate. The mother's followers skyrocketed, and tasting the sweetness of success, she frequently posted online to bully her daughter. She screenshotted all the harsh words, printed them out, and plastered them all over her daughter's room, telling her over and over again, "All the misfortunes in my life are because of you." The daughter watched in silence, and she watched for 20 years. Her mind was dark and twisted. She couldn't stand seeing others' families happy and harmonious. In the original story, she went to great lengths to sabotage the relationship between the male and female leads, and in the end, she got what she deserved, dying alone in a rented apartment. That, in a nutshell, was the life of the malicious female supporting character, Xiao Wenjing, and my mission was to change her fate. The time machine sent me back to the turning point of her destiny, the day of the spicy tomato and egg noodles incident. I transmigrated into a 50-year-old grandmother, the maternal grandmother of the villainess. This year, the villainess is 6 years old. In the noodle shop, a family of 3 was eating noodles. My son-in-law sat with his legs crossed, playing funny videos out loud without a care in the world, slurping down a bowl of braised beef noodles, a rich, crimson broth, soft and mellow in flavor. My daughter in this body, Zheng Yulan, and her granddaughter, Xiao Wenjing, share a bowl of tomato and egg noodles. Golden egg ribbons and vibrant red tomato sauce make one's mouth water, but in the eyes of Zheng Yulan, who craves spice in every meal, this bowl of noodles is utterly bland and unappetizing, especially when compared to the braised beef noodles beside it. Zheng Yulan took a small bowl, scooped a portion of noodles from the large bowl, and her daughter quickly finished them. She raised her chopsticks and tapped the back of her daughter's hand. A clear red mark was left on the back of the little girl's hand. "Xiao Wenjing," Zheng Yulan scolded sternly, "were you born a starving ghost? You're a girl, you need to be gentle, gentle, gentle when you eat, just like your name. Can you do that?" "Sorry, Mom, I'm so hungry." The little girl instinctively flinched and pulled back her hand, only to get smacked on the back of her hand a second time. "You dare talk back, you dare dodge." Zheng Yulan roughly grabbed her wrist and harshly struck her palm with a pair of chopsticks. "What did Mom tell you? Mom scolds you for your own good. What should you do?" The little girl, with tears in her eyes, wanted to dodge but didn't dare, and sobbed. "Oh, obey Mom, no resisting, no talking back, no dodging." Zheng Yulan's anger turned to joy. "That's more like it." She picked up another strand of noodles for her daughter and asked gently, "Do you know how to eat it now?" The little girl nodded vigorously, then picked up her chopsticks quietly and slowly scooped the food into her mouth. Both the palms and the backs of her hands were flushed red. Zheng Yulan was displeased. "What do you mean by counting each strand as you eat? Do you think the tomato and egg noodles taste bad?" The little girl froze, looking at her mother uneasily. "If you don't like the taste, there's nothing we can do. Who told you to get sick at such a young age and not be able to eat spicy food?" Zheng Yulan complained. "Just because you can't handle spice. I've been deprived of the right to eat anything spicy myself." The little girl looked timid. She stretched out her slender arm, reached for the chili oil jar on the table, and added a spoonful of chili oil to her mother's noodle bowl. "Mom, I'm not hungry, you eat it," she whispered. "Don't worry about me, Mom, you eat the spicy one." Throughout the meal, the man sharing the table with them remained completely silent, chewing his fragrant beef noodles in large mouthfuls. his eyes never leaving his phone, giving no reaction whatsoever, more like strangers than strangers. Zheng Yulan suddenly erupted, overturning both the large and small bowls of tomato and egg noodles in one swift motion. Tomato juice trickled down the table, blooming into a tomato flower on the little girl's skirt. She slapped her daughter angrily and began to scold her incessantly. "Are you trying to drive me to my grave? I wanted spicy braised beef noodles, not spicy tomato and egg noodles. Do you know how awful tomato and egg noodles taste with chili oil? If it weren't for you, would I have to eat such terrible noodles?" The little girl called out helplessly. "Mom, don't call me Mom," Zheng Yulan nearly screamed, breaking down. "All you do every day is Mom, Mom, Mom," like some debt collector. Tears welled up in the little girl's eyes. Zheng Yulan grew even angrier. "Cry, cry, cry, all you do is cry every day. You've cried away all my good fortune, you little jinx." The little girl stubbornly clenched her jaw. At just 6 years old, the villainess had not yet learned jealousy and revenge, only how to cry pitifully. I walked over with a bowl of braised beef noodles and set it down heavily in front of Zheng Yulan. Zheng Yulan asked, "Mom, weren't you feeling unwell? What are you doing here?" Beside her, the son-in-law, who seemed like a stranger, finally tore his gaze away from the video on his phone and looked at me. It was like an NPC triggering a player's quest. He instantly came to life. "Mom," my son-in-law stood up, offering an ingratiating smile. "Are you feeling better? Have you eaten yet?" I ignored my son-in-law and pushed the braised beef noodles toward Zheng Yulan. "All that nonsense, and you're just complaining that the tomato and egg noodles are bad. If you want to eat something else, just order it yourself. Why take it out on a child?" My son-in-law chimed in eagerly. "The beef noodles here are truly exceptional, Mom. Shall I order a bowl for you? Would you like the braised or the spicy version?" Without any hesitation, I plopped down into the seat, the spicy one. The son-in-law jogged to the front counter to place the order. I curled my fingers and tapped the table, mimicking Zheng Yulan's tone as I spoke. "Zheng Yulan, how have I taught you to behave normally, causing a commotion in public without any manners? Have all those years of schooling you've had been wasted?" Zheng Yulan's face was filled with shame and indignation. She lowered her voice. "Mom, have you lost your mind? Criticizing me in front of so many people really hurts my self-esteem," I sneered. "When you were just talking about your daughter, did you consider her self-esteem? She's only 6 years old. What kind of self-esteem could a child possibly have? I've been too lenient with you all along, and that's why you've become more and more unruly." I knocked on the grimy tabletop again. "Clean this up. Don't cause trouble for the noodle shop owner and the wait staff. Mom, keep talking back, and don't ever ask me for money again." Zheng Yulan resentfully pulled out a tissue and wiped the noodles and broth off the table and floor. I pointed at the stain on my granddaughter's dress. "And here, just toss it in the washing machine when you get home, and it'll be clean." "Did you even apologize to your daughter for spilling soup on her?" "Why should I apologize to her?" Zheng Yulan raised her voice. "I'm her mother. I can do whatever I want. Since when does a mother have to apologize to her daughter?" "Zheng Yulan," I darkened my expression. "What have I always taught you? When I was sick recently and couldn't help take care of your child these past few days, did I apologize to you? If I can do it, why can't you?" Zheng Yulan looked completely unconvinced, her chest heaving violently. The little girl quietly tugged at my sleeve and whispered, "Grandma, it's not Mom's fault. Mom is just too tired. Look, what a well-behaved child." Instead of appreciating it, Zheng Yulan flew into a rage. "Xiao Wenjing, what do you mean by that? What do you mean? I don't blame Mom. In the end, you just think Mom was wrong, making yourself look magnanimous." "Huh?" The little girl hurriedly shook her head. "No, Mom, I didn't think that way. What do you think?" "I just think Mom has had a hard life. Then you shouldn't have been born at all." Zheng Yulan screamed hoarsely. "If you hadn't insisted on crawling into my womb, would my life have been this difficult?" The little girl was completely stunned, staring blankly at her mother. I curled my lips mockingly. "See, you care about her and consider her feelings, but she might not necessarily care about you or consider yours." After clearing the table, my son-in-law brought over a bowl of spicy beef noodles. I ordered a bowl of tomato and egg noodles for my granddaughter instead, issuing a series of instructions to the son-in-law. "Your wife loves spicy food, so let her order separately from now on. Your daughter has a sensitive throat and can't eat spicy food, so just have the kitchen prepare a small portion of children's noodles with some toppings. Your wife is frugal and manages the household well, and your daughter is well-behaved and sensible. They always think about sacrificing their own comfort and are reluctant to trouble you, but as a husband and father, you should take the initiative to care for them. My son-in-law admitted honestly, Mom, I didn't do well enough. I'll be more careful in the future. Of course, I knew perfectly well that while he said this, he was probably seething with anger inside. Someone who's been used to shirking responsibilities can't suddenly become a good husband and father. Zheng Yulan jumped in to object. No, Mom, that's too wasteful. For the three of us, we'd have to pay for 3 portions. How much can Wenjing? Just a child, really eat. I cut her off. Then next time, you order the beef noodles, and Wenjing and her dad can have the plain noodles. How can that be? Zheng Yulan grew even more anxious. My husband is busy with work and needs proper nutrition. He's a grown man with a big appetite. 1 bowl of noodles isn't enough for him. If he has to share with Wenjing, how will he ever get full? Then you can eat less yourself and give some of your noodles to your husband, Isn't this a bit inappropriate? I retorted sarcastically. What's so inappropriate about it? You think it's wasteful to order a bowl for each person. You feel hard done by because you can't eat spicy food and have to share a bowl with our daughter. Your husband and daughter share a bowl, and you're worried your husband isn't eating well enough or getting enough. What, do you have to let your daughter go hungry before you're satisfied? Zheng Yulan was speechless. After a long pause, she argued, Mom, do you know how expensive it is to raise a child? If it weren't for this little brat, would I have to be so stingy? Our family's financial situation is what it is. We have to save every penny we can. The little girl, who was called Little Beast, hung her head low, wishing she could crawl under the table. What money have you spent on raising the child? Tuition, meals, extracurricular fees. I've been covering all of Wenjing's expenses, haven't I? I grew impatient and set my chopsticks down on the girl's bowl. Aren't you hungry? Eat your noodles. The little girl stole a glance at her mother, then another at her father. Not daring to pick up her chopsticks, I said impatiently, if I say eat, then eat. The little girl hesitantly picked up her chopsticks. Her mother had just begun to show a hint of displeasure when I sharply stopped her. You two earn over 10,000 a month with no debts. How on earth can you not even afford a bowl of noodles? Zheng Yulan stammered hesitantly. The little girl seemed to be starving, quietly finishing half a bowl of noodles without a sound. I turned to my son-in-law and asked, what do you think of the idea of 1 bowl each? The son-in-law's expression remained unchanged. Mom's suggestion is quite good. Let's do it this way. The matter was settled, but my daughter was unhappy. Zheng Yulan quietly pulled me aside. Mom, how could you do this? My husband works so hard and only gets to eat plain noodles and broth, while I'm at home with the kids and get to eat beef noodles. He must feel really uncomfortable about it. I sneered. The house and car for your marriage were bought by me, your mom. He earns 5,000 a month, and I give you 8,000 every month. On top of that, I often help take care of your kids. All I want is for my daughter and granddaughter to eat properly. What right does he have to feel uncomfortable? Mom, how can you make him sound like some freeloading pretty boy? Isn't he? Zheng Yulan said angrily. Mom, why are you being so sarcastic and irritable today? From now on, please stop meddling in our family affairs. He already felt bad about taking your money, and with you making such a scene, how could he possibly feel comfortable? You make a very good point. I nodded cheerfully. To take your husband's feelings into consideration, I've decided to stop giving you two any more financial support from now on. You two should live your lives well on your own. Zheng Yulan couldn't believe it. Mom, are you joking? What do you think? Stepping out of the noodle shop, the client in her ghostly form, an elderly woman who looked exactly like my current appearance, mustered up the courage to interject. Agent 414, could you please speak a bit more gently to my daughter? Yes, the client was Zheng Yulan's mother, Xiao Wenjing's grandmother, the original owner of this body I now inhabit. A few days ago, she felt slightly unwell and couldn't take care of her granddaughter, so she returned to her own home to rest. As it turned out, she suffered a sudden heart attack and passed away at home. No one has discovered her yet. She had savings and a daughter, yet she couldn't escape the fate of lonely death. Her daughter sent messages urging her to help pay the mortgage and car loans, receiving no reply. she grew furious and sent over 30 long paragraphs blaming her. The only one who cared about her health was her 6-year-old granddaughter. After the old woman became a ghost, she drifted in a daze, by chance. She learned of her granddaughter's fate and, after much effort, contacted our parallel universe destiny-altering agency. At the cost of her soul, she begged us to change her granddaughter's destiny. Shut up, I glared at the old woman. If it weren't for the bad habits you spoiled into her, would your daughter be able to bully your granddaughter like this? The old woman looked ashamed and didn't dare to speak. Never in my wildest dreams did I expect that even after the matter was resolved, Zheng Yulan would still post about it online. From a bystander's perspective, she described this scene. A family of 3 went to a noodle shop. The father had beef noodles, the daughter had tomato and egg noodles, but the mother, who loves spicy food, could only eat the mild tomato and egg noodles with her daughter. She voiced a soul-searching question: does having a child mean mothers no longer have the right to eat spicy food? Under the post, countless netizens sympathized with the mother's situation. Only those who love spicy food truly understand how much this mother has sacrificed. There's no way around it. Once a woman has a child, she gets tied down and loses herself. My daughter is allergic to seafood. To accommodate her, our family hasn't eaten seafood for over 10 years. This year, she started eating at the school cafeteria, and we had seafood for 10 days straight. Finally, we're alive again. Your daughters are so unfilial. Just because they don't eat spicy food or seafood, they forbid you from having it. I rushed over to the apartment the old lady had bought for her daughter and son-in-law. A new bulletin board had appeared on the wall of Qiao Wenjing's room. Children are nothing but debt collectors. Sons and daughters are enemies from past lives, coming back for revenge in this one, giving birth to a disobedient, unfilial child, and you can't just stuff them back into your womb. Means a mother's life is ruined. Having a daughter like this is worse than having a piece of roast pork. Countless harsh words, enlarged in font, printed and pasted, were positioned right opposite the head of the bed. Every day, as soon as 6-year-old Qiao Wenjing opened her eyes, she could see them. Seeing them for a day or two would make her feel miserable. Watching for a year or two, she would become numb. Watching for 10 or 20 years, it would be a miracle if she didn't become psychologically twisted. Mom, why didn't you let me know you were coming? Zheng Yulan hurried over. She spoke with righteous indignation. As it happens, I have something to discuss with you. The Qiao family relatives are building a house and are short about 500,000 or 600,000. We can't come up with that amount. Mom, your pension is quite substantial. Why don't you contribute half to help us out? I laughed in disbelief. Didn't you complain about me meddling in your family affairs? I've said it before. I won't interfere anymore, and I won't be giving you any more financial support. Zheng Yulan grabbed my arm. If you don't subsidize us, how are we supposed to survive? Mom, you see it yourself. I can't even afford an 18 yuan bowl of beef noodles, so I have to settle for the 13 yuan tomato and egg noodles. I interrupted her impatiently, tired of her constant whining and playing the victim. Your mortgage, car loan, utilities, property fees, and heating bills. I'm the one paying for all of it. I'm the one paying for Wenjing's kindergarten tuition, meal fees, and extracurricular class registration fees. You and your husband earn 13,000 a month. Are you really so hard up that you can't even afford a bowl of beef noodles? Zheng Yulan avoided eye contact, stammering. We have our own expenses to cover. Let me tell you, Zheng Yulan, why you've managed to ruin such a good hand of cards. I grabbed Zheng Yulan's wrist with my backhand. You have a family to fall back on, and a well-behaved, obedient child who never gives you any trouble. You're full-time housewife. Life consists of playing games at home every day, not working, not doing housework, not taking care of the child, while I, your mother, pay for everything and take care of the child for you. I only fell ill for a few days, and as soon as the responsibility fell back on your shoulders, you couldn't handle it. Most women in this world come from far worse family backgrounds than yours. When faced with a situation like the tomato and egg noodles incident, they either get a divorce or do their best to make their lives a little more comfortable. For example, by ordering a bowl of beef noodles they actually enjoy. Why do you have over 10,000 in disposable income each month? Yet you can't even bring yourself to order a bowl of beef noodles, because you're love-struck and ended up with a useless husband. You don't love yourself. You don't love your mother, and you don't even love your own daughter. the only one you love is your husband, even though he doesn't earn much, shirks all responsibilities at home, spends lavishly to show off in front of others, and even schemes to live off your family's wealth. You're still madly in love with him. Willingly charging into battle for him, your marriage is troubled, but you're unwilling to get a divorce, unwilling to blame your dear husband, and even less willing to bottle up your anger alone. The pent-up negative emotions have to find an outlet somewhere. Your daughter became the most convenient punching bag, Zheng Yulan. It's not that you truly can't afford a bowl of beef noodles. You're just angry that your husband is too stingy and indifferent toward you. You deliberately position yourself as the victim, using your daughter as a substitute for your husband to vent your emotions. What have you actually given your daughter? You didn't contribute much money, you didn't put in much effort, you didn't give much love either. She became your tool for playing the victim to gain sympathy and swindle emotional support from netizens, the sympathy and praise from netizens for you, the malicious attacks on the child, and the child's pain and fear in the face of the abuse. All of it has become the spiritual nourishment you use to fill the void of your unhappy marriage. Isn't that right, Zheng Yulan? Zheng Yulan froze. Mom, what nonsense are you talking about? She snapped, her shame turning to anger. You must have lost your mind after that illness. I think you should make an appointment with the psychiatry department. She reminded me. Psychiatry, right? I tore down the printed and posted comments from Qiao Wenjing's room, destroying the entire bulletin board. Then I rushed to the study and smashed her gaming computer to pieces. Zheng Yulan screamed and lunged forward, trying to stop me. I pushed her, and her back slammed into the bookshelf. Tears instantly streamed down her face. You hit me, she sobbed, pointing a finger at my nose. You're not my mom. My real mom would never lay a finger on me. You must be possessed by a ghost. I curled my lips. Yeah, your mom wouldn't even lay a finger on you. But you have no problem hitting and scolding your own daughter as you please. I swaggered out of the bridal chamber. The old lady was squatting by the door, hesitating to speak. I shot her a glare. What do you want? Trying to plead for your daughter again. The old woman looked bewildered. I always thought I was a good mother. I never let my daughter suffer the slightest grievance. But I never imagined she would turn out like this. Good that you realize it, I said coldly. You share some responsibility for what your granddaughter has endured. Zheng Yulan was addicted to playing video games. Usually, the old lady took care of her granddaughter while doing household chores. One moment of inattention, and the little girl ran to the study to find her mother, startling Zheng Yulan, who was so immersed in the game that she forgot she had a daughter, resulting in a teen wipe. Zheng Yulan shoved the little girl and yelled at her, pointing a finger in her face. The little girl went to her grandmother seeking a hug and comfort, but the old lady completely turned a deaf ear. If she hugged her granddaughter now, she would definitely make her daughter angry. It wasn't that she didn't care about her granddaughter, but in her heart, her daughter would always be the top priority. To help her daughter vent her negative emotions and become happy again, it wouldn't be too bad to occasionally sacrifice a little for her granddaughter. Right, after it happened enough times, Zheng Yulan developed a habit. Whenever things went wrong, she would blame the child, and the little girl finally became aware of her own situation. She knew that in this family, she was the least important, but in the end, this least favored granddaughter was the one who cared most about her grandmother. The old lady sighed deeply. It's my fault for not raising my daughter properly. The old lady was worried that her enraged daughter would continue to take her anger out on her granddaughter. I simply took the little girl back to the old lady's small, dilapidated home where she lived alone. The little girl was quiet and very independent. She could bathe and dress herself, wash her undergarments, look at picture books, and play with modeling clay on her own. No matter what she did, she would instinctively observe my expression first, testing my reactions bit by bit. Before considering whether to adjust her behavior, the old lady sighed with sorrow. Wenjing wasn't like this before. She was very well behaved, considerate, and highly self-disciplined. Never gave the adults any trouble. I exposed her self-deception. She has always been like this. You just overlooked it. Xiao Qiao, being a quiet child, had always lived at home as if treading on thin ice, constantly afraid that a single misstep might anger her mother and bring about beatings and scoldings. However, her father turned a blind eye, and her grandmother cared more about keeping her own daughter happy. The little girl tested me for a week before finally gathering the courage to ask, "Grandma, can I watch cartoons for a while?" "Just a little while," I nodded. Go ahead. She turned on the TV, glanced at me furtively, and switched to the cartoon channel. 5 minutes later, she looked conflicted, fidgeting restlessly, her eyes darting in my direction from time to time. Seeing me glance over, she immediately picked up the remote in fright. Grandma, I won't watch anymore. I won't, I said. From now on, you can watch 15 minutes of cartoons every day without asking me, the little girl asked uneasily. Really, really, but the next day. The little girl came to ask me again if she could watch a little bit of cartoons. I was getting a bit impatient. I already said you can watch it yourself. You can turn on the TV by yourself. You don't need to ask me about everything. The little girl muttered softly. Mom says that every time. But the moment I turn on the TV, she hits me. Her mother's unpredictability had caused her significant psychological trauma. I said coldly, she breaks her promises. You can tell her that one must be honest in life. Honesty. For example, if grandma allows you to watch 15 minutes of TV every day, but she forces you to turn it off after only 10 minutes, then grandma is in the wrong. You can point that out. That day, I told her to turn off the TV ahead of time. Grandma, why are you doing this too? What am I doing? I teased her on purpose. The little girl's face turned red with frustration. You're not keeping your word. She muttered softly, I only watched for 14 minutes. I couldn't help but chuckle, patting her little head as I teased. Yes, Grandma misread the time. In the future, if someone wrongly accuses you, you must speak up, understand? The little girl stammered. See, can I really? Of course, if Grandma misunderstood you today, even if you don't say it out loud, you'd definitely feel wronged inside. When you feel wronged, you'd show some unhappiness. The moment Grandma sees you acting upset, she'd get even angrier. Wouldn't that create a vicious cycle? The little girl didn't understand what vicious cycle meant, but she was very clever. After repeatedly testing that I wouldn't go back on my word, she gradually gathered courage and began actively expressing her own thoughts. Grandma, I don't want to eat fatty meat. Then don't eat it. Grandma, why is your room always locked? Can I go into your room? No, there's no reason why. I just don't want to, and that's that. Grandma, can I have just a little bit of chili, just a tiny bit? You can, but spicy food isn't good for your throat. If you eat it, you'll need to have the courage to face the consequences. Grandma, are you not adding chili because of me? You can eat spicy food. You don't have to worry about me. Every dish on the table was light, with not a single chili in sight. In the past, the old lady would specially prepare a light vegetable dish for her granddaughter, while all the other dishes were made heavy on oil and spice to suit the tastes of her daughter, son-in-law, and herself. I blinked slowly. No, the little girl nervously twisted her fingers together, looking up at me. Grandma loves spicy food, so she usually makes one non-spicy dish and one spicy dish on purpose, just like when we eat noodles. Grandma will order the spicy beef noodles for herself, and the tomato and egg noodles for you. Why? Grandma won't compromise her own tastes for yours, and you don't need to sacrifice your health for Grandma's tastes either. This way, everyone will be happy. The little girl put down the chili pepper she had picked up with her chopsticks, her eyes sparkling. The little girl, having stayed with me for a long time, gradually tested the limits of my indulgence toward her, or rather, my non-interference, and slowly grew bolder. She sat on the living room sofa watching cartoons, while I sat on the floor assembling Lego. Occasionally, she would come over and help me build. Other times, she would deliberately or unintentionally cause a bit of mischief, testing the boundaries of my patience. No wonder she's the villainess. Even before her dark turn, she's always had a bit of a wicked streak in her bones. As I was piecing it together, I accidentally placed a block wrong and had to dismantle almost the entire thing to start over. I stared gloomily at the Lego. The little girl, who had been so bold just moments ago, was now pale with fright. I'm sorry, Grandma, I'm just too clumsy. I'm punishing you by making you help Grandma put it together. It took us 3 days to reassemble one Lego set. I gave the Lego set to the little girl. The little girl was both surprised and delighted. For me, she asked again and again, is it real, Grandma? I smiled and nodded, asking, do you like it? I was a little scared at first. The little girl said cheerfully, but since Grandma gave it to me, I really love it. This was a magical world that belonged to her alone. There are castles, witches, and flying broomsticks. The color palette is dark, filled with a fantastical and eerie atmosphere. The little girl vowed, "I will love it for my entire life." I was stunned. Is that so? As an adult, Xiao Wenjing became obsessed with the magical world. As a child, Xiao Wenjing was initially afraid of the eerie magical world. But after receiving a magical gift from her grandmother, she became fervently enamored with it. The intricate parallel timelines scrambled and entangled the cause and effect. As a return gift, the little girl molded a figure of her grandmother out of clay and gave it to me. The little clay figure she made was quite childlike. It carried both her own shadow and that of her grandmother. "Grandma, when I grow up, will I look just like you?" "Not necessarily, you might look more like your father." "But I hope I look like Grandma," the little girl muttered. "I really like Grandma." I glanced at the old lady in the corner. Her expression was both gratified and wistful. Out of some malice, I deliberately asked the little girl, "Do you like the grandma from before, or the grandma now?" The little girl tilted her head and thought for a moment. "I like them both." The old lady visibly brightened up. "If you had to choose one." "The current one," the little girl smiled shyly. "The old grandma liked me, but she liked Mom more, but the current grandma seems to like me more." I tapped her forehead. "You little narcissist." "It's true," the girl protested loudly. "My intuition is very accurate. I just feel that Grandma now genuinely likes me and cares about me more than anything else. She is very sharp. Of course I like her. I care about her more than anyone else. I am the one who loves her most in this world." I smiled carelessly. "Who made us share the same blood flowing in our veins?" The little girl shook her head. "No, Mama shares the same blood with me too, but she doesn't really like me." My smile vanished abruptly. "No, in this world, no one can possibly care about you more than you care about yourself. Do you understand?" The little girl looked confused. I bent down and earnestly advised her, "You are the one who loves yourself the most in this world. If you don't even love yourself, others will only love you even less. So, the person you should love the most should be yourself." The little girl stared at me with wide eyes. "But can't I love Grandma the most?" "No." I cruelly shattered her beautiful dream. "Grandma can't always be with you. Perhaps one day, Grandma will suddenly stop liking you. Don't place your hopes in others. You must learn to love yourself well." Ever since hearing her granddaughter say, "Grandma used to like Mom more," the old lady had been feeling down for several days. As a ghost, she could only come to me to vent. She said that when Zheng Yulan was little, she was spoiled and adorable, like a carefree little princess. No one could help but like her. I've heard it so many times my ears are about to grow calluses. You're always talking about your daughter. Do you actually want to change your granddaughter's fate, or your daughter's?" The old lady was stunned for a moment, then asked, "Can I change both?" I sneered. "You only sold one soul, and you want to buy one get one free deal. Since when is anything that good in this world?" The old lady had just said it offhand. In the future she learned about. Her daughter lived a life neither good nor bad, not enjoying the prosperity that her economic status should have afforded her, yet not so dire as to require a change of fate. Yet it was this very daughter who played a key role in leading her own daughter down a path of corruption. Thus, this grandmother, who had always blindly favored her daughter, developed a desire to save her granddaughter. In wanting to change her granddaughter's fate, was she not also seeking to atone for her daughter's sins? The old woman suddenly grew curious about the future. "What will happen to me after I sell my soul?" Working illegally for the organization, of course. 998 work schedule every day. No pay, no social security. The old woman understood. "Just like you." I stared at her. The old woman chuckled awkwardly. "Just kidding," she muttered under her breath. "Agent 414 really is fierce." Under my murderous gaze, the old woman confessed everything. "In other parallel universes, I've actually sought out several agents. All of their missions failed. My granddaughter refuses to change her fate, stubbornly insisting on being the vicious supporting female character. Previous agents have said that you're the only one who might complete the mission, but you're fierce, sharp-tongued, moody, and difficult to get along with." I curved my lips. "Oh," the old lady immediately changed her tune. "I believe you can definitely help my granddaughter." I concluded, "To help your granddaughter change her fate, the first step is to teach her how to resist. And the second step is to warn her to learn to love herself, guide her subjectively to avoid going astray." The old lady happily covered her chest. You've accomplished both of these steps. Wenjing has become much more cheerful now and even expresses her likes and dislikes. I opened my mouth, revealing sharp fangs, and the final step is to deal with your precious daughter and useless son-in-law, eliminating the objective factors that lead to the villainous's corruption. During the more than half a month I spent taking care of the little girl, my precious daughter and useless son-in-law were anything but idle. The two of them played a classic good cop, bad cop routine, sending me countless messages. The son-in-law was particularly attentive, constantly checking in on me with warm regards. My daughter cursed me out, accusing me of trying to kill her by suddenly cutting off the financial support. Her husband earns $5,000 a month. Barely enough to cover the mortgage. The young couple never developed the habit of saving, and whenever they ran short, they'd turn to the old lady for help. But now, I'm not letting them rely on me anymore. They've even run into trouble putting food on the table. The cursing stopped 2 days ago. The old lady felt heartbroken but also tried to comfort herself. My daughter was just overwhelmed by emotions for a moment. See, she's stopped now, hasn't she? I smiled ambiguously. I took the old lady to another old apartment she had given to her daughter. The old house has a new owner, and the new owner said he spent $300,000 to buy the property from Zheng Yulan, and the payment, as requested by Zheng Yulan, was transferred to her husband's uncle. I took the old lady and stormed into her precious daughter and good-for-nothing son-in-law's marital home. Zheng Yulan said with righteous indignation, "Mom, how can you be like this, old lady? The house you gave me is mine to sell as I please. Do I really need to explain myself to you?" The old lady was trembling with anger. I repeated her meaning. "Mom specifically chose to give you this house before your wedding because she wanted to provide you with security and a way out. In case you're unhappy and don't want to come home to live with me, at least you'll have a quiet place to stay." The son-in-law stood by with a forced smile, saying nothing. "All right, I'm quite happy with my life." Zheng Yulan said impatiently, "I heard you gave the $300,000 from selling the house to your in-laws. Did you get an IOU? Why would family need an IOU? We don't expect them to pay it back anyway." The old lady fumed. "Zheng Yulan, oh Zheng Yulan, you're not leaving yourself any way out at all." To some extent, I actually envy Zheng Yulan. She has a good mother. Unfortunately, she herself has no brains, I said with a cold expression. "Since you're financially comfortable enough to casually give away $300,000 yuan, then there's even less reason for me to subsidize you in the future." My son-in-law's face darkened, and he shot Zheng Yulan a meaningful look. Zheng Yulan grew anxious, tugging at my hand. She patiently explained, "How can you call it just casually? My in-laws live in the countryside, have no social security, and no one to rely on. When they get sick, they can only count on my mother-in-law's brother for help. Now his family is short of 500,000 or 600,000 yuan to build a house. Isn't it only right that we transfer some money to help? If you want to be such great saints, why not earn the money yourselves? What gives you the right to sell my house?" Zheng Yulan finally lost her patience. "Mom, aren't you overstepping? Once something is given, how I handle it is none of your business." The old lady clutched her chest, swaying unsteadily, nearly having another heart attack in ghost form. Her son-in-law chimed in at the right moment. "Mom, Yulan has a quick temper and spoke a bit harshly. If you need it, we can go borrow from online lenders or loan sharks to get the money for you." I gave him a cold glance. "Oh, so now we're resorting to threats." I filed a lawsuit against the couple, taking them to court. Revoking a gift is no easy task. Fortunately, I had secretly recorded their conversation in which they promised to repay the money out of spite. Combined with my history of myocardial infarction and various other factors, the court ultimately ruled that they must return half of the assets to me. The marital home was auctioned off, and the $300,000 yuan they had gifted was also recovered. During this time, Zheng Yulan's incessant cursing could be heard without end. I didn't block her. Instead, I intentionally played these voice messages out loud in front of the elderly lady. The elderly lady was utterly heartbroken. Seizing the opportunity, I filed another lawsuit and, as the actual caregiver, stripped my daughter and son-in-law of their guardianship over Qiao Wenjing. In custody battles, it's often very difficult for someone who is neither the father nor the mother to win. Fortunately, in this case, both parents were irresponsible and unwilling to raise their daughter. It was also fortunate that the little girl was very firm in her stance, insisting on living with her grandmother. On the day the verdict was announced, I sent the overjoyed little girl, who couldn't stop smiling, to the welfare institution. The little girl's smile froze, her face instantly turning deathly pale. I bent down and solemnly warned her, just like last time, no one will love you forever except yourself. I did warn you. I changed the little girl's name, erased all traces of her existence, handed her over to Director Lee of the orphanage, and strode away. I decided to leave this parallel world. The ghostly old lady chased after me, cursing, "All right, how could you do this? You said you were suing my daughter and son-in-law to help my granddaughter, and that's why I agreed. But what happened? Why did you send my granddaughter to the welfare home after winning the case? Is this how you save her? You'll ruin her." I stopped. She screeched to a halt. Her curses stuck in her throat. She just turned 7. "How long do you think I can stay here with her?" I asked mockingly. "You don't actually think I'd wait over a decade for her to grow up just for some lousy mission, do you? Is your soul really that valuable?" The old woman opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "You're talking to me about saving her? Ridiculous. No one can save her except herself. If she can't learn to put herself first, even if I spend decades or centuries here, I can't change her fate." "What about my daughter?" the old woman cried out, nearly desperate. "You abandoned my granddaughter, but why do you have to ruin my daughter too?" She dropped to her knees with a thud, and I stepped aside, my face dark with anger. "Please, Agent 414, go and talk some sense into my daughter. She's not even playing her favorite games anymore. I'm afraid that after such a heavy blow, she might not be able to go on living." Before leaving, I went to see Zheng Yulan. The marital home had been auctioned off, and all family assets were completely wiped out. Zheng Yulan and her husband were living in a cramped, dilapidated rental apartment. The economic crisis had completely exposed the hidden marital problems that had been lurking beneath the surface. Without her mother-in-law's subsidies, the son-in-law no longer pretended, often beating and scolding Zheng Yulan, who had lost her usefulness. Zheng Yulan curled up under the covers. She still didn't go to work, didn't do housework. Her hair was a mess, her clothes smelled foul, and she lived in a daze. I stood in front of her for 10 minutes before she slowly reacted. "Mom," she opened her mouth, her voice hoarse. "What are you doing here? Did you come to laugh at me?" She suddenly burst out, emotionally charged, grabbing pillows and blankets to throw at me. "It's all because of you. Because of you, I ended up marrying such a man." The old woman's face was full of disbelief. "What are you talking about? I never agreed to you two being together. It was clearly you who insisted on marrying him." Zheng Yulan screamed hoarsely. "Back when you were divorcing Dad, all you cared about was money. You used his affair and kickback scandals to threaten him, and you took the majority of the assets in the divorce. I'm in so much pain. I don't understand why my mother only cares about money and not love. I swear, I will never become a gold-digging woman like you. I'm going to find a man with no money, and I'll wholeheartedly spend all my money on him. I want to prove that true love doesn't care about money." The old woman wept bitterly. "The reason I wanted to get more money was for you, my dear daughter. All the money I have is meant for you. I only wish for you to live a wealthy and happy life." I coldly watched as this mother and daughter pair poured out their hearts across the distance. I spoke with biting sarcasm. "Oh, so did your verification succeed? You have no money now. How much true love is left? When you had money, he couldn't even be bothered to pretend. Now that you're broke, what kind of behavior do you expect from him?" Zheng Yulan frantically beat her head with her fists, weeping uncontrollably. She cried for an entire hour. I stood by the bed, admiring her agony. Her suffering is the finest nourishment for me. This is the true purpose for which I accepted this mission. I narrowed my eyes with pleasure, filled with malice. "Would you like me to live stream your current state? Netizens would surely sympathize with you, fiercely criticize your mother, your husband, your daughter. You'd harvest a whole basketful of emotional validation." "No, no." Zheng Yulan rushed over and grabbed my arm. "Mom, please don't treat me like this. Don't you love me the most? I know I've disappointed you, but I'm begging you, give me one more chance. I'll become your good daughter again. If I told you to get a divorce, if I told you to call the police and have him arrested the next time your husband lays a hand on you, would you be willing?" Zheng Yulan's breath hitched. "You can't do it." "No, I can try. Mom, Please don't give up on me. I looked down at her condescendingly. Come find me at the old house when you've actually managed to do it. I opened the task interface and selected, Leave this world. The little girl changed her name and hid in the Welfare Institute, where no one could find her. I left all of the old lady's inheritance and the assets awarded by the court to her, to be managed by Director Lee until she turns 18, at which point they will be returned to her. Dean Lee is an upright and honest person. He will surely take good care of this child. The little girl secretly ran away from the orphanage and returned to the old house where her grandmother lived alone. The room was empty. Prying open the door to her grandmother's bedroom, which had been locked for years, she saw a corpse that had nearly turned to bones. It was Grandma. The little girl had secretly called the police and was hiding behind the crowd, peeking. The forensic examiner said that Grandma had died of a heart attack a year ago. The little girl's eyes widened. What has she been living with this past year? And Zheng Yulan, she finally mustered the courage to call the police and file for divorce, eagerly looking forward to throwing herself into her mother's embrace and continuing to live off her parents. But she saw a police cordon stretched in front of the old house where her mother lived alone. All assets under her mother's name had been cleared out, their whereabouts unknown. The house had also been sold off entirely. And this haunted house had long been sold at a low price. Zheng Yulan collapsed to the ground. Gone, everything is gone, mother, daughter, husband, house, money, all gone. She listened in a daze as the forensic examiner said the deceased had died of a heart attack a year ago. Her hope was rekindled. Did that mean the person she had been in contact with this past year wasn't her mother at all? Could the already effective judgment be revoked, for some unknown reason? Every time she brought up this matter, her voice would automatically be muted, and the words she wrote on paper or typed into her phone or computer would automatically disappear. All details related to her mother within the past year were affected by a mysterious force. In extreme fear, Zheng Yulan moved away from the city. Ding, welcome back to the Parallel Universe Destiny Alteration Agency. The system's cold, mechanical voice sounded. I want to hear the rest of the story. The malicious female supporting character, Xiao Wenjing, grew up healthy in both body and mind under the special care of Dean Li, all while holding deep affection for her grandmother. She loved the magical world and firmly believed that the witch riding a broomstick would appear again. She no longer resented the male and female leads, nor did she envy those fortunate ones with happy families, because she had already obtained the most precious love in the world. This love, transcending time and space, crossing the boundaries of life and death, had come to her. As for Zheng Yulan, she left alone to start a new life, living neither well nor poorly. After leaving that terrible man, she would never again have an emotional breakdown over a bowl of noodles. Congratulations on completing the task, Agent 414, Xiao Wenjing. I nodded. Thank you. Love that relies on the charity of others will eventually run dry. Only by loving yourself can you save yourself. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.